Chapter 1. The Weight of Ambition. The air in the Los Angeles County Courthouse was heavy with the exhaustion of 100 forgotten pleas. Jim Ross sat across from a man who looked like he had spent his entire life slipping through the cracks of the justice system. Ross Kemper leaned back in his chair, exuding a careless confidence that starkly contrasted with the grave reality of his situation. "Well, the judge really lowered the boom on you, Mr. Kemper," Jim said, shuffling the thick stack of manila folders on his desk. "He is what they call a hanging judge." Kemper scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "Look, on a hit-and-run felony, my bail should be $5,000, maybe $10,000 at the absolute maximum. And it would be, if I did not come from out of town." "Maybe, maybe not," Jim replied, his tone steady but laced with the weariness of a law student who had not slept in 3 days. "You almost killed the man you hit. You destroyed thousands of dollars in property. You endangered other lives, and you resisted arrest. I do not understand what your hang-up is, Mr. Kemper." Jim leaned forward, trying to find some shred of reason in the man. "I get my 10%. Any other bail bondsman in Los Angeles would jump at the chance to earn this kind of fee." "Look, Mr. Kemper, I would really like to help you," Jim continued, his voice softening slightly. He was a young man, burdened by the crushing weight of tuition and living expenses. "But I cannot go back to my boss, Roxy, and justify a $75,000 bond without the solid collateral to back it up." Hey, look, come on, will you, Jim?" Kemper pleaded, his eyes darting around the small consultation room. "Give me a break. I know you want to help." "Because if I help you, I help myself," Jim admitted honestly. "But under these circumstances—" Kemper interrupted, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Hey, tell me something. Are you married? Got any kids?" "Oh, no way," Jim laughed bitterly. "I am still in law school." "Okay," Kemper nodded slowly, a calculating gleam in his eye. "You work and go to school at the same time. That must be tough." "It is not so bad," Jim lied. "Nothing a little money would not make easier, huh?" Jim sighed. "You will get no argument out of me there." "Hey, wait, sit down a minute," Kemper urged, leaning closer. "I have a business on the street that cannot wait. And I'm going to take a chance on you. I am going to level with you. What if I told you that you could get your hands on enough money to stop working entirely? Enough money to finish law school without breaking a sweat, and after that, enough to set you up for life." Jim felt a cold knot form in his stomach. The temptation was a physical weight. "Look, Mr. Kemper, I have another client waiting." No, I mean it," Kemper insisted. "And to get you off the hook with the bonding company, what if I also told you I could dig up collateral right away, today? Stocks that would more than cover my bail. Are you interested?" Jim hesitated. The promise of freedom from his endless debts was intoxicating. "Well, if you do have the stocks to cover the bond, what is the problem?" "Do not play dumb, kid. You are interested." Kemper smiled, a predatory grin. "I am talking about cutting you in on something huge. Have you read about the Alexander Rockwell heist in Palm Beach, Florida?" Jim's breath hitched. "You did that?" "Yes," Kemper stated proudly. "The loot includes a lot of stocks, worth maybe 5 to 8 times the price of my bail. Is that enough collateral for you?" "I cannot accept stolen stocks," Jim said, his voice trembling slightly. "You are making a mistake," Kemper pressed. "By the time anyone finds out they are hot, I am long gone." Jim closed his eyes. The exhaustion, the poverty, the endless struggle, it all crashed down on him. "How much?" he whispered. "I mean, how would I figure in?" "Let us just say that what I am holding comes to about $1,200,000, Kemper said smoothly. "Let us say you could have 200,000 of that." Hours later, the paperwork was signed. Kemper walked out of the holding cell, a free man for the time being. "I want to tell you, kid, you handled that release like a real professional," Kemper chuckled as they walked toward the exit. "Your boss ought to pin a medal on your chest." "I do not think I will take any bows until I get my hands on that collateral," Jim replied, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. "I told you not to worry, did I not? Now, where are you parked?" "Over there," Jim pointed. "I will be right with you." "I have to make a quick phone call," Kemper said. Jim watched him walk away, a deep sense of foreboding settling over him. He had crossed a line, and there was no going back. Chapter 2. Shadows of Consequence. The bell above the door of Roxy Morgan's bail bonding office chimed cheerfully. Barnaby Jones, a private investigator with a gentle demeanor and a razor-sharp mind, stepped inside. "Oh, Barnaby, how incredibly nice to see you," Roxy greeted him warmly. She was a woman who radiated maternal kindness, despite the gritty nature of her profession. "Would you like some tea? Coffee?" "Oh, I forgot. You prefer milk." Barnaby chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I think I had my quota at the office today, Roxy. You are looking as pretty and spiffy as ever. How are you feeling?" "Wiser," Roxy sighed, leaning against her desk. "And maybe a little poorer, if you do not find Ross Kemper for me." Barnaby raised an eyebrow. "Roxy, I always figured the reason I never got much business from you was because you were far too smart a bail bondswoman to be taken for a ride by some skip-out." "It never would have happened if I had been minding the store," Roxy admitted, looking down. "I took a little time off. The doctor wanted to run some tests, so he put me in the hospital for a few days." Barnaby's expression shifted to immediate concern. "The hospital? Are you all right, Roxy?" "Oh, yes, I am absolutely fine," she reassured him quickly. "It is just that while I was away, Jim Wabin, the young law student who works for me, handled the bonding transaction. He took collateral in the form of stock certificates. It turns out they were stolen property." "Did he not check the serial numbers on the certificates?" Barnaby asked gently. "I cannot blame Jim," Roxy said softly, defending the boy she viewed almost as a son. "He is inexperienced, and he is so eager to bring in a big commission to help pay for his schooling. I just should have been here. That is all." "When did you find out the stock was stolen?" "Yesterday," Roxy replied. "When Kemper failed to show up for his arraignment, I had the numbers checked. That is when the roof caved in on us. The bond was for $75,000. Barnaby let out a low whistle. "That is a massive one, Roxy. I sure hope the police find him. If they do not produce Kemper in court within 90 days, I will have to forfeit the entire amount. It could ruin my business. That is why I desperately need you, Barnaby." Just then, the door opened, and Jim rushed in, looking disheveled and frantic. "Roxy, I am so sorry I am late again. I was up studying for my legal test until very late last night. I guess I just overslept. And I bet you did not even take the time to have a proper lunch," Roxy scolded gently. "Lunch? I am still trying to find the time for breakfast." Jim managed a weak smile. "Oh, excuse me," Roxy turned. "Barnaby, this is the future Clarence Darrow of our generation. Jim Wabin, I would like you to meet Barnaby Jones." "Hello, Jim. It is very nice to meet you." Barnaby extended his hand. "Same here, Mr. Jones." Jim shook it, his grip slightly damp with nervous sweat. He turned to Roxy. "I am so incredibly sorry about this absolute mess I have made. I have already told the police everything I know. If there is anything else I can do, just let me know, please. When it comes to asking for help, you will always find me at the very head of the line." Roxy smiled, patting his arm. She looked at Barnaby. "He has been moping about this ever since Kemper skipped town yesterday. And I do not want it to negatively affect your studies, Jim. Do you understand me? It was a simple, honest mistake." "Roxy, I am going to make this up to you," Jim said, his voice thick with emotion. "If Mr. Jones does not find him, and things do not turn out right, I will pay you back every single cent, even if it takes the rest of my natural life. It is a life that is going to end in about 2 seconds if you do not get out of here and go put some meat on your bones," Roxy teased. "Now go. And do not forget to bring me a ham-on-rice sandwich, okay?" Jim nodded and hurried out the door. Barnaby watched him go, his observant eyes missing nothing. "He seems like a very fine young man," Barnaby noted. "He truly is," Roxy smiled fondly. "He just brightens up my whole day to have him around here. You will find Kemper for me, will you not? Betty mentioned that your calendar was very busy lately." "My calendar is never too busy for you, Roxy," Barnaby promised. "I will get right on it." Chapter 3. The Price of Dreams. Across town, in a small, dimly lit apartment, Jim paced the floor. His girlfriend, Vicky, sat on the edge of the sofa, watching him with a mixture of amusement and concern. "Do you ever give up?" Vicky asked, crossing her arms. "No." Jim grinned, though it did not quite reach his eyes. "I am going to keep chasing you until you finally catch me." "You are absolutely impossible," she laughed softly. "Adorable, but entirely impossible. So, why haven't you returned any of my telephone calls lately?" "I thought we mutually decided that you were bad for my focus," Jim teased. "No, you decided that. And you also need to remember something else I decided. I want a prosperous, successful lawyer, not a poverty-stricken student." Jim stopped pacing and looked at her, his expression suddenly serious. "Well, that is exactly what I want to talk to you about. You always stop talking when you do not listen." Vicky rolled her eyes. "How is that profound wisdom coming from a poverty-stricken student? Did you get that from a dime store novel?" "You know, Vicky, that is the main trouble with you when you become too cynical. You look, but you do not truly see. Now, look again." Jim walked over to his satchel, unzipped it, and pulled out a velvet pouch. He tossed it onto the coffee table. It landed with a heavy, metallic clinking sound. Vicky cautiously opened the pouch and gasped. A cascade of sparkling jewels and thick bundles of high-denomination bills tumbled out. "Is this real?" she whispered, her eyes wide. "It is real," Jim said softly. "And there is more. Lots and lots more. Now, can we finally talk about our future?" Vicky looked up at him, her hands trembling. "What do you mean, there is more?" "There is enough for us to travel to London, Paris, Rome. There is enough for you to quit that lousy job at the diner. There is enough for us to start a real life." "Just a minute." Vicky stood up, backing away slightly. "Where exactly did you get this, Jim?" "I had a very lucky day down at the office." "Where, Jim? Tell me the truth." "What difference does it possibly make?" Jim argued, his voice rising. "The point is, it is all yours. Do you like it?" "It is stolen property, is it not?" Vicky asked, her voice shaking. "Does that not scare you at all?" Jim ran a hand through his hair. "I do not know. It should scare me, I suppose." "What have you done, Jim?" "Look, there is absolutely nothing to worry about. Believe me, we are free and clear. And there is over $1 million worth of merchandise more." Vicky felt the blood drain from her face. "What?" "Now I am terrified. Right down to my very toes." "How did you get it?" "I will tell you all about it later," Jim promised, stepping forward and taking her hands. "But right now, I have to figure out a safe way to turn these items into usable cash." "You are into something way over your head, are you not, Jim? Just trust me. Okay? All right. Now, do you remember that girl you shared your apartment with last year? Linda? What about her? Remember you told me how incredibly upset she was with the guy she was dating? She gave him the brush off because she found out he was a criminal? She found out he dealt in stolen property." "Yes." Vicky nodded slowly. "She found out he was a fence. Do you think you could get in touch with him for me?" Jim asked, his eyes desperate. Vicky stared at the man she loved, realizing he was standing on the edge of a very dangerous cliff. "I think so." "Good," Jim exhaled. "Then we are in business, baby. It is as simple as that." Chapter 4. The Web Tightens. The hunt for Ross Kemper was fully underway. Barnaby Jones sat in his office, reviewing the police files with his trusted associate, Betty. "Well, welcome to the hunt, Barnaby," Lieutenant Carter said over the telephone line. "Did Roxy tell you I am officially on the case?" "No, but I figured if Roxy got herself into trouble, you would be the first person she would turn to at the department," Barnaby replied. "Is there any trace of Kemper yet?" "Not yet," Carter admitted. "The manager of his apartment complex said Kemper left there about 1 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, carrying a large valise. He did not say where he was going. You can see it all in the official report." Barnaby sighed. "Did they give your department a bigger budget this year? How come you are authorizing the expenditure of all these man-hours on a common, ordinary hit-and-run fugitive?" "The stakes went up drastically, Barnaby," Carter explained. "The Palm Beach police sent a bulletin over a little while ago. The stock certificates Roxy accepted came from the Alexander Rockwell robbery. Palm Beach suspects that Kemper pulled the job together with a very dangerous man named Sven Rowley. The criminal grapevine has it that Kemper double-crossed Rowley and then took off with the whole boodle. That would certainly explain why Kemper was in such a frantic hurry to get bailed out of jail, Barnaby mused. It is too bad we did not get that background information sooner. We would have kept a tight lock on Kemper. I have heard of this Sven Rowley. He is supposed to be a very bad boy. Has Rowley been seen in town? No, but they have got the same news in Florida that we have here about Kemper skipping his bail, so we are expecting him to show up. You watch yourself, Barnaby. Be careful. Do not get caught in the middle of a war between thieves. I will keep that in mind. Thank you, Carter. Barnaby hung up the telephone and looked at Betty. We need to find out where Kemper might try to sell those stolen stocks. Let us go pay a visit to our old friend, Andy Burns. Andy Burns operated a small, cluttered pawn shop that smelled faintly of old brass and desperation. When Barnaby walked in, Andy was polishing a gaudy necklace. A beautiful spray of sparkling, genuine imitation diamonds, Andy announced grandly as Barnaby approached the counter. Look at it. It is a sparkling dream. The kind of romantic stuff that maybe Napoleon gave to his lovely lady, Josephine. Or perhaps Caesar gave to Cleopatra. I will take it, Andy, Barnaby smiled. How much is it? $16, Andy beamed. And that is the wholesale price, Barnaby, I promise you. Honest. Barnaby placed a $50 bill on the glass counter. Keep the change, Andy. But I would like a solid line on Ross Kemper. Andy's smile vanished, and he pocketed the money quickly. I figured as much. When Betty called and said you wanted to see me up here, it certainly was not to play the cello in a string quartet. Come on, Barnaby. Do you think you're going to help us find him or not? Hey, when a guy is on the run with over $1 million, he does not hold up a neon sign saying, "Here I am, you know," Andy whispered, leaning over the counter. He is going to have to surface sometime in order to fence the loot. With the police out on his tail. What is his hurry? Barnaby reasoned. He may not surface for months. I would buy that theory except for one major thing, Andy said grimly. Sven Rowley is also looking for him. Barnaby nodded. I heard about Rowley. The police think Kemper double-crossed him. Include me out of this mess, Barnaby. Andy held up his hands defensively. Number one is not getting himself hurt messing around with Sven Rowley. No, sir. Oh, do not be so dramatic, Andy, Barnaby soothed. Nobody is trying to get you hurt. I just thought maybe you would like to do a small favor in return for all of the favors I have done for you over the years. Andy sighed heavily. You have a memory like an elephant, Barnaby. Okay, I will check around and see if any of the local fences are contemplating professional suicide by handling that merchandise. Thank you. Anything else? There is a girl, Andy remembered. Peggy something or other. When Kemper was in Los Angeles about 6 months ago, he was sporting this light-haired girl on his arm. A real beauty. She is a scuba diving expert. He was trying to scare up some financial backing for a fake sunken treasure scam down in Florida. I think she is still living in town. Do you have an address? East Side, West Side, take your pick, Andy shrugged. I have to get running. I will see you later. Chapter 5. A Dangerous Bargain. In a quiet, upscale neighborhood, Jim Wabin knocked on the heavy oak door of Victor Sonderheim. Sonderheim was a man of refined tastes and entirely lacking in moral scruples. He was known as the most sophisticated fence on the West Coast. The door opened to reveal a well-dressed, older man holding a glass of dark red wine. I presume you are the young man Sally called about, Sonderheim said, his voice smooth as silk. I am, Jim said, stepping inside and looking around nervously. Sally has been quite secretive. She did not give me your actual name. Yes, I know that, too, Sonderheim smiled faintly. One cannot be too careful in our line of work, can one? This is a fine Burgundy wine. Would you care for a glass? No, thank you. I am not thirsty, Jim said, his heart hammering. Let us just get on with it, okay? Sonderheim sighed dramatically. Cultural suicide. That is exactly what our pre-packaged, hurried civilization is headed toward. Very well. This consignment of engravings and baubles your young lady talks about. How can one be certain you are really in possession of such high-quality merchandise? All you have to do is check the serial numbers on the stocks, Jim offered. I will, Sonderheim assured him. Still, business being business, I will have to see all the merchandise before I commit to any deal. A percentage deal, of course. What kind of percentage are we talking about? Jim asked. Oh, 20%. Perhaps as much as 25%. Jim's eyes widened. You have got to be putting me on. Consider the immense difficulties involved, young man, Sonderheim lectured patiently. These engravings are tainted and require highly special arrangements for their safe disposal. The baubles present a completely different set of problems, such as cutting and resetting the stones so they cannot be traced.
Now, come?
$250,000 to $300,000 is still a very sizable amount of money for a student, is it not? Jim swallowed hard. When can we do this? It has to be right away. Raising that massive amount of cash quickly is not easy, but it is manageable. This house is my place of business. Remember, come back tonight with all the merchandise. Jim nodded, feeling as though he were walking into a trap from which he could never escape. He left the house, his mind racing with a desperate plan. Meanwhile, Barnaby Jones had tracked down Peggy, the scuba instructor. He found her at a local community swimming pool, instructing a class. All right, Virginia, Peggy was saying to a student. Turn around, take a deep breath, and fall into the water backwards. Barnaby walked up to the edge of the pool.
Excuse me, miss.
I am a private investigator, Barnaby Jones. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions about Ross Kemper? Peggy turned sharply, her face tight with stress. Yes, I do mind. I am very busy right now. It is kind of important, Barnaby insisted gently. I told you I am busy, she snapped. Barnaby noticed a faint bruise on her cheek. Did Ross Kemper do that to you? Barnaby asked softly. Peggy's posture crumbled slightly.
No.
Some giant gorilla looking for him, just like you are, who could not get lost for an answer. So, if you think you can do a better job on me, then go right ahead. But you better take your best shot, mister, because you just get one. Barnaby held up his hands peacefully. Hold it right there. The only time I ever struck a woman, she was 3.5 years old and had a copper penny stuck in her throat. I am sorry to bother you, but after that big ape bounced you around your apartment, you must be a nervous wreck. Who did it? He did not leave a calling card, Peggy said bitterly. He just said Ross would know who he was. Barnaby pulled a photograph from his coat pocket and showed it to her. Did he look like that? That is him, all right, Peggy confirmed, shivering. That is Sven Rowley, Barnaby explained. Has something happened to Ross? Peggy looked away, her eyes filling with tears. Do you have any special reason to believe something may have happened to him? 2 days ago, he called from his apartment just after he had been released on bail, she whispered. And he said he needed a safe place